Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the CAS 360 New Features webinar, this time for August 2021. My name is Warren and I'm the head of CAS 360, and hopefully you can all hear me loud and clear. Please let me know in the chat box. Joining me today in questions is Andy. Andy is in the Q&A and he'll be dealing with any questions that you have throughout the session. If you do have any questions, please type them into the Q&A. That is where all of the questions will be answered. No one's put anything in the chat box, so I hope people can hear me loud and clear. Yeah, there we go. Thank you, guys. All right. So what I'm going to go through today is a series of new features that we have released over the last few months in CAS 360. So with the exception of one feature that I'm going to touch on first, all of the features I'll cover off today, you can use. So every feature except for the first one that I'm going to touch on. Now, what I'm going to cover off is obviously the May, June, July releases. All of these sessions are recorded. Okay, so you will be able to watch them after. You can't see any screens. I've got it solely focused on look at me mode at the moment, so you can't see any screens, but we'll get to the screens shortly. But all of these sessions are recorded and they will be posted on the community. So you can click on the community button at the top of CAS 360 and they are there. They are on our YouTube channel as well. I've got a list here of all of the webinars that we've done. There's over 3 years of beautiful webinar content for you there on the community. Now, before I get into the new features, I wanted to touch on a little bit about ASIC, the ATO, and registry modernization, because this is a very big project that's going on, and BGL are heavily involved in this and in working with the ATO, ASIC, and the other regulators to get this all up and running. So there's 2 parts of this. First one is the director ID. So the director ID is a requirement that is going to be enforced on all company directors. We don't know when it will be forced because that hasn't been decided yet. So at this stage, they are testing the system out and make sure it works. I think they've got 50, maybe 100 company directors to verify their ID. And we did recommend a few people for that sort of initial testing. They are still working through that process, ironing out processes and ironing out problems with the director ID registration. There are a few things I can confirm for you. First of all, it will be done by the ATO. It will be done through the MyGov ID process. So you won't have to go to Australia Post or anything like that. It won't use a third party, not initially. It'll all be done through the MyGov ID app. There will be a somewhat of a linking process with your tax file number. Certainly if you're an Australian resident and you have a tax file number, that helps. But they'll also, you'll be able to use supporting documents. You'll be able to upload supporting documents to verify your identity as well. Once that's done, you'll be given a director, or the director, sorry, will be given a director ID. There is a big issue here for agents because agents are not allowed to complete the process on behalf of their directors. Agents will be able to notify the directors, but they won't be able to go through and complete the ID verification process and get the director ID. We are still working with the ATO about what we're going to be able to do in relation to confirming the IDs and what services we can provide for agents. As you can imagine, I've been a big advocate of the agent community being able to access as much as possible of this. So we are still working through that with the ATO. So with Director ID, it's going to be live soon, but we don't know when. And there will be a 12-month grace period for existing directors. So I say grace period, there'll be a 12-month period where the existing directors will have to get their Director ID. So that won't be immediate. But when the legislation goes live, once that goes live, any new company directors will only have 28 days to complete their Director ID requirements. So just to be really clear, existing directors on the go live date, and we don't know the go live date yet, but any existing directors on the go live date will have 12 months. Any directors that are newly appointed after the go live date will only have 28 days. So we will build features in CAS 360 for that. Obviously, we're still working with the ATO so that we have a bit more information about this, and when we have more information about this, we can actually build some features for it. But that was an update on Director ID. The other process, registry modernisation, which is essentially a process of rebuilding the entire ASIC company register. That's taking shape, and there's a bit of work going on. The ASIC register has essentially moved into the ATO, or a part of the ATO's hands, the Australian Business Registry Services hands. So they are an arm of the ATO. So there's basically new ownership of that data. And that new body is actually building a new register. So there'll be a completely new way of lodging documents, obviously all through CAS 360. The thing that will change is the underlying technology. And we hope, obviously, it gets better and gives us significantly more opportunities and significant more scale, certainly around June and July. So there'll be that, and that will essentially go through the process of building all of the lodgements and possibly adding new lodgements that will allow us to lodge even more electronically to ASIC. So phase one is really getting everything that is lodgeable today into the new system, and then obviously building on that from beyond. What you might see there is little things like a combined agent registration. So your registered agent for companies will be very similar to your ATO agent and things like that. So they'll be able to merge together the agent models. But also you'll see improved services like company registration, ABN and TFN application all being done together as well. So there's a few advantages that we can unlock there. A couple of questions that I've got so far, and I'll do my best to answer on this topic, because it is a hot topic. I hope that everyone understands that we are in a bit of a tough position, BGL, because whilst we know some of the stuff, there's a lot of uncertainty that we still don't know. So it's very hard to come out with a product or a feature for this because there's so much uncertainty still. If you cannot help what happens if you are a director as well as a tax agent, regardless, if you're a company director, you're going to have to go through the MyGovID process, Deborah. So it's nothing to do with being a tax agent. There'll be two different processes. So what will be is, if you are a director and a tax agent, then you can identify yourself and register yourself as a director, but you won't be able to do anyone else, if that makes sense. What will the penalty be if a director ID is not completed within 28 days? I don't know. I think there will be a penalty. There probably should be a penalty, but I don't think it's been decided yet. So there will be a requirement to get it within 28 days. I think that personally, my view is that there'll be a little bit of a period where the legislation comes in and it's a little bit light touch, but then there'll be, I suppose, the old ASIC penalties might get kicked in a little bit further down the track. How is MyGov going to confirm that the person is a current director? Will it be done through the ABR? So it's a great question, Romana, and one of the biggest issues relating to director ID is the government is asking all company directors to go through a process of identifying themselves as a director. That's it. Okay, so if you are a company director, you are required to identify yourself through MyGovID. There is no process at this stage of linking that director identification to a company at all. Okay, so I might repeat that. Once you have identified yourself as a director, there is no link to any company. Okay, the linking will come later. So you are just identifying yourself as a director. Do we need to make sure that all the current directors and current listed information is currently listed on the Australian Business Register? So the data that is on the ASIC register will be moved across to the new system. So that'll all be migrated. So the only thing I would say to you is make sure that your data is accurate at all times. That's the only advice. So if the data is out of whack, I would focus on the ASIC register. I wouldn't focus on ABR or anything like that. I would focus on ASIC, and that's what they will bring across. Hopefully that answers a couple of those questions. Obviously, if there are more, please send them through. As Viola has pointed out, not everyone will be able to apply and identify themselves through MyGovID. That is 100% correct. I am told, Viola, that there will be other ways that you can identify yourself But MyGovID will be the majority of your clients. There will be other ways. So hopefully that gives everyone a little bit of an update. It's probably not everything that you're after, but if you do have any questions, send them through. I'm kind of a little bit limited about what I can and can't say, but hopefully I've given you enough of an insight, and certainly BGL's insight, which is we need to be somewhat ready, but we don't know when we need to be ready for, because the legislation hasn't been activated yet. I would imagine, though, that the legislation will be active this year. I would say it would be active by the end of November this year, is when I'm conservatively guessing. I'm only guessing of when it would be active. So just be aware of that, that as well. Hopefully that has got us off to a flying start, because what I'm going to do now is share my screen and talk to you about what you all came here for, and that is CAS 360. So hopefully you can all see my screen now. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go inside CAS 360 and talk to you about a feature that is going live tonight. And that is our integration with FuseSign. So in CAS 360, we have an integration with DocuSign, an integration with Adobe Sign. And as of tonight, we will have an integration with FuseSign. So you will be able to digitally sign your documents in CAS 360 with any of those three applications. For those of you that don't know much about FuseSign, obviously you can Google FuseSign, but they are an Australian signing application. Okay, we obviously integrate with a number of signing apps, but FuseSign are an Australian application, and they've got a different price point, and some might say quite a competitive price point. There is a special offer that will go with the launch of FuseSign, and I think it does depend on a few different things, and there's a couple of different plans. So please go through the process and have a look at those plans if you are interested in FuseSign. But I think that you'll be able to have documents signed from as little as 90 cents per document pack, which is a fantastic result for everyone that was, maybe concerned about the price of signing. Certainly, we will still continue to support DocuSign, Adobe Sign, and obviously FuseSign. And we're looking to add more. We want to give choice to you as a user community, so that you can choose the signing app that best suits you. So FuseSign will go live tonight. What I'm going to take you through now is a little bit of a demonstration of FuseSign. However, we have built the digital signing apps in CAS 360 to be equal. Okay, so we really want to try and make the integration with DocuSign, Adobe Sign, and FuseSign identical in CAS 360, because we don't want to play favorites or anything like that. The integration remains the same across the board where possible, which is pretty much everywhere. And you as a community will choose which app you use. So what I'm going to do is just prepare a standard officer appointment. Okay, so I can go through and prepare that. And here is the email that will come through. You'll notice that this email is identical to the base email in CAS 360. So that whole preparation process and the email is identical for Adobe Sign, DocuSign, and FuseSign. There's no difference there. And then what you can do is click Review Documents, and this is where things start to change. So you go through to proceed your digital signing, and this time it says it's powered by, well, it has the FuseSign logo there. So it's powered by FuseSign. We click on Review Documents. We launch FuseSign. So this is essentially what your client will see. And obviously they say, hi, Warren, get started. And up comes the documents that we've prepared in CAS 360. We click Start Signing. We can sign in here. Click to sign. So I can type my name in, hit sign, and that will go through and sign on all the spots. One of the things that we, again, have done with FuseSign, just like we've done with DocuSign and Adobe Sign, is we have done all the tagging for you. All the documents are marked up and tagged from a BGL perspective so that you can easily roll this out. There's no exporting to PDF and setting up all of the signing apps and everything like that, or setting up all the sign here stickers. CAS 360 does all of that for you as part of the integration. Again, this is not unique to FuseSign, it's for all signing apps, but all of your signing spots are there. Click Sign here. Again, continue to go through the signing. It is fully signed and you're done. And that's it. So the documents now will come into CAS 360. They'll have their little FuseSign logo will come up in your notifications. You'll be able to all those documents will be obviously, the status will be updated. The signing certificate is attached in the document screen, and it's all done. And that goes live tonight. So hopefully, if you are using FewSign in your practice today, you can activate it tonight or tomorrow morning, and away you go. There's a few questions here. There's a couple of comments in the chat, and there's a couple of comments in the Q&A. If you're using the chat, can you please use the Q&A? It just makes it easier for us to manage. There's a question here, is there a list that we can generate via BGL to identify all our current directors? We'll go one better than that. We're actually going to build some features around director ID and who has and who hasn't got who hasn't got a director ID. Once we've got the information, you'll be able to send out reminder emails and things like that. So we've got some great features for you, Grace, beyond that. Okay. So hopefully that answers the question. Go over to the Q&A. Are typed signatures supported by ASIC, and can the client download the signed PDF? I believe, Emily, the client can download the signed PDF, but I'll just verify that for you. Andy, maybe you'd be able to answer that for me. Are typed signatures supported by ASIC? Sarah, there's actually a change in legislation that I think was voted on today, where they've amended the Corporations Act to accept digital signatures for all company documents. So be aware of that as well. It includes all of the company resolutions and things like that as well. So it was a law change today. By the end of the session, I might be able to flick the link up into the chat, because there is a way that now, or a legal way, that these are now accepted. Yeah, a couple of questions here is I have Adobe Sign, but not the corporate version. Different signing apps require different versions. That's completely out of our control. So DocuSign and Adobe Sign both require an enterprise or a corporate version. Certainly, I would certainly have a look at FewSign, purely because it will offer you a different price point for those. And certainly the corporate and enterprise versions can get a little bit expensive, and FewSign might be able to offer you a more competitive price. So certainly have a look at their special offers. You won't have to do anything to have a look at their special offers. When we drop the release, there'll be a nice splash screen that comes up, and you'll be able to click on a link and go and have a look at all of the FewSign offers. Yeah, interesting regarding the 362. I think the 362 was much more an ASIC interpretation than it was a legal legislation. So maybe that will follow suit after the legislation change today. Is this permanently? I read that the no action position was only until September 2021. Good work, Romana. You read the same thing as I did, and that was the first thing I noticed, 16th of September. I think that something might happen on the 16th of September. Maybe the new Corporations Act will come into effect, or maybe there'll be some updates, but certainly it seems almost laughable to have it legislated for 40 days. So I think that it'll become more permanent. Even the establishment of company and trusts. So companies, yes, but trusts are not covered by corporations law, so it will be a little bit different. So there's that. RE signing of ASIC documents, this include Form 492. There's a couple of things here. There's company documents that are able to be digitally signed, and then there's ASIC actually accepting them. Okay, so they're two different things. So company documents are able to be signed. It's ASIC might not accept them. If the digital signing is made legal for all documents, does that mean all docs that are lodged, able to be lodged through electronic means now? Julie, I think that there's usually a bit of lag time between when the legislation goes live and when the regulators start actually accepting it. So hopefully the regulators will start accepting it. So hopefully there, we don't email the ASIC version of the annual company statement. So how will that work with Fuse and DocuSign? We only email the one CAS generates. Wendy, the one that CAS generates actually has the digital signing sticker, so you can actually sign it. So I would recommend personally that you always send the CAS 360 version, because this CAS 360 version of the annual company statement has a signing line for the director to sign. Why that's important is because you want the director to sign, because you want the director to read it and to sign it and make sure that it is correct. And maybe if there is a mistake on that that document, and maybe that mistake has existed for 4 years, you might be able to say to the director, you've signed and approved this document for the last 4 years. Don't tell me the mistake is my fault. Anyway, maybe that happens from time to time. All right, what I'm going to do is move back to CAS 360 and go through some of the new features. So obviously FewSign going live tonight is a very exciting announcement, and we're really excited that firms will be able to use it because it unlocks another signing provider and gives you all a little bit more choice. So what I'm going to do now is have a look at some of the features that we released in the update just recently. So I think it was the start of August, we released version 66, which FewSign was kind of a part of. And the first thing we've done here is we've actually focused on some performance improvements and some rewrites of a lot of the company data screens. So when you go into screens like general details, name registrations, addresses, offices, shareholders, what we've done is a huge amount of work under the hood to make these faster, perform better, smoother, everything like that. There's not a lot of difference that you'll notice or that you'll see, but you're probably just gonna have to take my word for it that it looks a lot better under the hood, and it works a lot better from our perspective as well. So there's some performance gains that you will have noticed, that you may have noticed from a lot of that work, but there was 64 changes that we did there to make a lot of that work a lot better and a lot quicker. So one of the things that you've got to do when you're building software products is fix the engine while you're flying. And this is one of those times. We were also able to add in a couple of nicer new features. So you might have noticed, and I hope that some of you noticed because I've been getting this request ever since CAS 360 went live nearly 5 years ago, and that is to add commas to large numbers. And you can see on your screen that Joe Bean has 1,000 shares, and we have a nice comma there identifying that the 1,000. So we've added commas to those numbers, to those larger numbers. We did a lot of work on adding things like currency symbols that you might not see too much in Australia because everything has to be done in Australian dollars, but certainly in other regions where you're allowed to issue shares in pounds and things like that. So we did a lot of work on our numbers and our currencies. So wherever you see a number now, you'll see a nice comma. I think that if I go to one of my companies, we'll have $1,000 in debt. Let me just find that one. So there you go. You'll notice that the ASIC invoice there is for 1,188. So again, we've got a nice little comma there, and we're showing all of those numbers like that. So we did that to make those numbers look a little bit nicer. The next feature I have a bit of a look at is the company type filter that's added to the company listing reports. So some of you will manage foreign companies, some of you will manage things like super trustee companies and things like that. So, you know, what we wanted to do is give you some more options in terms of filtering when preparing reports. So we've now added company type. So you can go in and prepare a company type, and you can have a look at maybe just foreign companies. So if you needed a report for just your foreign companies, you can go into your company type filter, turn that on, and export it to XLS or something like that that you wanted, or a PDF that you wanted the report in. But certainly what we've tried to do here over the last couple of updates is build out the filtering. So you've got a subclass filter now, which will show you, for example, all your super trustee companies. Obviously, super trustee companies have a different annual review fee, and they might have a different internal charging fee. So you would be able to, at the click of a button, prepare a report that will show all of that. But certainly your company status, your subclass, your type, all your labels, all can be filtered in your company listing reports. Couple of questions here. Are there any plans to integrate with suite files for digital signing? Rosie, there's always plans to integrate with more signing apps. We are constantly working with organizations, and suite files is one of them. It won't just be digital signing though. There will be integration with suite files in general as well. Can you search by date company added? No, you can't, Catherine. Although we do have that data. We do have that. So maybe we could add that in. And can company type foreign subsidiary? Emily, the problem is the company types are the Corporations Act company types, and foreign is a Corporations Act company type, all of those company types are actually related to the Corps Act. So it's either foreign or it's not one of the foreign ones. I hope that explains it. There's a lot of different entity types that we could put in, but we've tried to stick strictly to the legislated entity types, I guess. Couple of other features that we've added in this release. So view-only users for trusts will now be able to download and view the trust deed. So a bit of feedback there that view-only users could not download the trust deed. So if I jump into my trust, you'll notice I've got a trust deed here. Previously, view-only users couldn't download that, but now they can. Okay, so that's been added in. A small change on the report screen is we've renamed all of our registers to add the word register at the start of them. So they've been updated. So you've now got register names. But the biggest and one of the best features that we released in this update was the effective dates and the changes that we made to the default minutes and resolutions to add better support for effective dates when transactions take place. So previously and before the last update, when we prepared a minute or a resolution for particular company changes, and we had a range of information that was not all that consistent in relation to effective dates. Some transactions did have effective dates, some didn't, some just had a date, a random date in brackets. So we spent the time to correct them, and I'll show you how that looks. So if I jump into my company, and my officer here, I've got myself being appointed as director on the 7th of the 7th. I can prepare the forms. And if I have a look at my director's meeting minute, you'll notice that we now have a nice sentence there that says Warren Rendon, appointment effective from. So what that is there to do is to show you quite clearly in the default minutes, the effective date of that particular transaction. And we've added that across a number of different transaction types on all of our directors meeting minutes and resolutions to make those documents look a lot more professional, a lot better, and to remove any uncertainty or clarification. So thank you to the people that requested that, because it certainly makes the product better, that you've got a bit better documentation. And we've got a whole heap of very similar features to this coming for your share transactions, where your share transactions are going to get much more consistent and are going to be a lot better in your minutes and resolutions as well. So always looking at the finer details as well to make sure that the documents that come out of CAS 360 are of great quality. A couple of questions here. Australian company can issue shares in other currencies. Okay, that's interesting. I wasn't sure they could, Kiki, but okay. I'll move on because that's the only other question there. Okay, let's keep going. So the next feature I'm going to have a look at is from our version 65 release. And this is one that we worked a fair bit on, and it's to do with your email settings. So some of you may know that when you send an email from CAS 360, it comes from no reply at cas360.com. That's the standard, and that's what we have had since day one. What we did get is a number of requests from practices that wanted to change that. They wanted it not to come from no reply at cas360.com. They wanted it to come from Warren at abcaccounting.com. Well, now you can do that. So what we have done is we've released essentially a custom email. Okay, so you're able to put in a custom email address in the email settings screen. And here you can put whatever email, well, not whatever, but the email address of your practice as the sender of those emails. Now, it is a premium service. It is something that, first of all, we have to support, and there is a bit of a process that you need to go through to register your email address. You can't just type in and start using it. There's actually a whole heap of internet protocols and things like that that we need to go through. So we've got some support there. Also, there's a limited amount of custom email addresses that we can actually support. So we can't give it to everyone. So there is a once-off setup fee of $550 for that. But if you wanted to send the documents from your own firm's email address, you can now do that. And that was part of our version 65 release. We have had a number of firms that are using this, and it certainly does help make the emails look a bit nicer because it comes from the firm address rather than no reply at cas360.com. So if it is something that you are interested in, please reach out, or you can go through the process here. Couple of other questions that I've got here. Digital signing for form 490, 406 and other forms. Forms for foreign companies legally accepted. Look, Leanne, with the change to legislation, because it only happened today, I think that ASIC won't, how do I put this nicely, won't be completely accepting digital signing forms today. It might take them a little bit of time, but it's certainly something I can push them on to see if they will start accepting those. If you have two directors, can you choose who signs the minutes, or is it automatically inputted? Well, the answer is both. We automatically select someone based on their meeting status. But Alicia, and I'll just show you for those that aren't quite sure, you can always change the signer of any document at the time of creation. So if I go into Offices, Prepare Forms, in the options on the right-hand side here, we have that Options button. And if I click on my Directors Meeting Minute, I can first of all change it from a minute to a resolution, but I can change the person signing. So for the minutes, I can change who is signing. Obviously, the resolution, I don't have that option because everyone signs. So hopefully that answers that question. And the same applies to my Form 484. I can go to my form and change who's signing. Certainly that feature is very powerful for digital signing because you need to have the email address of all of the signers. Previously, if it's a no reply email with the customized email, can a client respond? The answer is yes, but the client's always been able to reply. You just don't send a reply to the no reply. So in our email settings, you always have had the ability to set a reply address. So you can set a reply address and you can type that in. If the client hits reply, they can reply to that. Maybe if you've got the customized email, clients might be a little bit more confident in replying because the email won't say no reply, but you've always been able to reply. Yeah, so there's a couple of questions here that I'll wrap up together, which is, can we use several email addresses as custom emails? The answer is no. Okay, the custom email is one per firm. It is a decision that we had to make purely because there are limited spots. So because of the way the internet and email works, and that's not being flippant, it is quite complex. We can't provide this to every single person, and we can't provide 15, 20 different email addresses per account. We actually have a limited number that we can provide, and then we can't provide it anymore. So at this stage, we've set a rule that it's only one per firm. We just purchased a customized email. When can we expect for that to happen? It's all working now. Kiki, if nothing has happened, contact us. We'll sort it out for you. But the whole purchase can happen from within the product. And you should be able to have it all up and running straight away. Question here, would it be possible to add a wish list of CAS to have a proxy form meetings? It would be nice to send one from CAS to clients whenever they use a minute. They would be able to execute proxy forms for directors and members that cannot attend. Good question, Romana. I'll certainly put it on the wish list to put in some proxy forms. Thank you. Okay, so that's custom email. We're staying on the email settings screen. And this feature is all to do with the document review feature. So document review is a great feature. It's a great workflow feature because it allows you to prepare the documents and then send them off to your partner or manager or director for review. Now, one of the things that has always potentially been a holdback or a reason for not adopting the feature has been that the email that was sent to the client would come from the preparer and not from the reviewer. maybe the firm wanted to send the emails as if it came from the partner. You can now do that. So in email settings, there is a option here where documents that are set for review are sent from the reviewer or from the preparer. Okay, so so you can select reviewer, you can select preparer, and that is how it goes. So you can now set who is going to send that from CAS 360. So if you want the reviewer, the partner's name to be on that document, you can select it as reviewer and it will go. Viola, you are correct. So Viola, for those that are not seeing the Q&A, Viola has just said the new temporary laws haven't effect on the way ASIC requires wet ink signatures. No, they haven't. I'll certainly ask the question, Viola. You can only get the answer no back, but you are correct in that it hasn't changed their stance, but maybe we might be able to get them to start thinking differently. The next feature I'm going to have a look at is in relation to exporting a list of all of your documents. And I wanted to address this outstanding documents list because this is a feature that we've had it's coming soon for a while. The problem with this feature is essentially it may not always work for big firms because of how big the outstanding document list might be. So we've tried to deliver this functionality a slightly different way. So if you go to your document screen, and I hope some of you have been able to use this, but if you go to your document screen, your global document screen, you can click on options and export document list to CSV. And this will give you a CSV of every single document that you can then manipulate. So if you were looking for documents that were outstanding, you can export it to CSV. And in CSV, what you're able to do is filter by document status. And you could have that as sent to client, okay? Or sent to client view sign or prepared. And this will show you a list of all of the documents that are not yet lodged. Obviously, you'll have a filter on the left-hand side where you can use documents to be lodged filter on the left here. But if you wanted it as a spreadsheet, you certainly can do that as well. So we wanted to give a full document list. Certainly, there are many other usages for that particular report. So if you just wanted to filter it by particular documents or documents with fees or a group of trace numbers or documents that were prepared within a particular date range, all of that's available by exporting it out to CSV. It is available from your global documents list. It is also available from inside a company. So if I was to go to a particular company here and go to my documents tab and click on options, and I can export it out to CSV. And this will be the same list, but for just this company. If I wanted to export all of the documents and all of the attachments, well, we released that earlier in the year, and you click on export company documents, and that will export out all of your company documents for this particular company. You can't export all the companies, but all the documents for every company at once, though. That would kill the system. But you can't do that, but you can export them per company. So hopefully that helps. And just got a question here. I noticed that some documents were sent for DocuSign and others not. So once we implement DocuSign, we still have an option of sending them for signature normally. Yes, you do, absolutely. So again, every time you prepare a document, you have the ability to turn on or off digital signing. Obviously, if they're integrated with, if you've got DocuSign turned on or integrated, then it is on by default, but you can always turn it off. So for those of you that were a little bit hesitant about digital signing in general, please know that you can use it sparingly. You can use it for just certain clients. You can, I would always be an advocate of trialing it out with the internal companies of the practice. So maybe the partners companies and things like that, or even your own companies to try it out. I know that with BGL products, a lot of the stuff that we try in the product, we try ourselves with our own companies and our own SMSFs when we're playing with the features, because we want to get that best experience as well. So if you're interested in digital signing, that's maybe a good place to start. Next feature I'm going to talk a little bit about is the updating of all of the system messages. So some of you may have noticed this, some of you might not have registered too much, but you'll notice here that that little attention box is obviously newly designed, and we've gone through and tried to continue to modernize the look and feel of CAS 360 as we go. So that attention box, as well as I think it's 190 other attention boxes or messages screens. I think document production does a great job of showing it off as well. But a lot of those particular messages have been updated to be a lot nicer and maybe a lot clearer and a bit less crude. Certainly there was a lot of red in some of our messaging and that didn't make everyone happy. But now they're a lot nicer and a lot more consistent. All right, I'll get to that question soon. I'll move on now to the next feature, which is added the trust meeting address to the address usage report. So for those of you that are managing trusts in CAS 360, and if you're not, maybe you're using a spreadsheet or something for your trusts, certainly look at CAS 360 as a way of managing your trusts. We don't charge for trusts, they're free. So, you know, and it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg to use the feature. And you can use a spreadsheet import. So I encourage you to download this import template, put your trust data in, send it through to us, and we will import your trust data so you can start managing your trusts in CAS 360 and utilize some of the features. And there's a great feature that I'm coming to for trusts, but this one is a smaller one. We've just added the trust meeting address. So if I was to go into my Rendon Family Trust, you'll notice here that the trust meeting address is Suite 1000. And if I was now go to my reports and my address usage report, search for that address, and we have now added that in to that report. Hopefully it works when I can open it up. So it will be there as the trust meeting address. So we added that there, and you can see the other areas where that particular address is used, but we're continuing to adding to that particular report. So there's a question here. Sorry, did you say trusts are free? I did say trusts are free. I'm not going crazy. Trusts are free. We don't charge for trusts. We only charge for companies. We do not charge for trusts. If you have 25 companies, you can put in 25 trusts. If you have 25 companies, you can put in 25,000 trusts. It's completely up to as many as you can manage. Trusts are free. When doing a multiple address change, will the trust also come up to date? Good question. I think the answer might be no. Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think multiple changes is a little bit of work to do to make those changes also apply to some trust addresses like this one. Just a question here. What I meant was the ASIC generated annual company statement has the invoice attached. So we would have to download and delete the ASIC ACS and upload it. Andy's typing a question through to you, Wendy, as well. In the annual review, we also have an invoice, so you can, so you don't necessarily need to do that. We've built the annual review process so you can attach the CAS annual review for signing and also the CAS ASIC invoice, which will have all the ASIC invoice detail for you. Happy to reach out after the session, or if Andy can send you a message through, but certainly there's a way that you can do that. Certainly we've got that covered off for you. A couple of questions in the chat here. Is it a one-off fee using custom emails, or do we have to pay it annually? It's one-off. It's $550 one-off. It will apply for the life of your CAS 360 subscription. We don't seem to have the export company documents. Sheridan, yeah, absolutely will. Just make sure you're in the single company document screen for the exporting documents. You can't do it from the global document screen. Hopefully that answers that question. Obviously doing it from the global document screen might not shock you, but some firms have 90, 100,000 documents. There's a lot of documents in CAS 360. All right, moving on. One of the features we released in version 65 was a feature called contact name enhancements. We did a lot of work around the names of contacts and making them, I suppose, a little bit more Singapore eligible than anything. In Singapore, They don't treat names as first name, surname. They just treat names as name. So we had to make a lot of changes to the system for that. I'll move on to the next one, which is added a company name / trace number to the attachment modal heading. And I know there's a couple of users out there that ask for this one. It's very, very simple. If you go to your document screen, if you click on global documents, options, attachments, you'll now notice that the company name and the trace number are listed at the top of the attachment screen. So that is there now, and you now won't get lost to which company you are in when you are viewing attachments or uploading attachments. If you're switching between screens, or if you're uploading a signed document from an email and you've got to drag and drop, you won't get lost because that is in there. So hopefully that helps for you. The next feature we added was manager to the company selection screen columns. A lot of questions coming through. I'll do my best to get to them. If I go to my company selection screen, I click on filter columns, you'll now notice that manager has been added to the list. So you can now add manager to that particular company selection screen. I've also seen that we are adding signing contact as well to that company screen. So you'll be able to add that in there as well. Obviously, company status has been a big one. If you are a previous desktop user and you didn't already know, company status has made a long-awaited return to CAS 360, and you can now add that to your company selection screen. Next feature is talking about improving decimal places and the decimal places selection widget. So if I go to something like a dividend statement, okay, so I'm going to my shareholders, go to my dividends, click on review dividends. I'm just going to prepare a dividend here. If I click on my dividend statement, we've now got a nice selection here for decimal places. So certainly if you had issues where the dividend was quite small per share, so if the dividend per share was, I don't know, 0.1 of a cent, maybe decimal places was an issue if it only went to 2. So now you have control over that. Another feature in that particular release was the trust deed and being able to view trust deeds as part of trust documents. So I showed you earlier a feature that we had where we uploaded the trust deed here. Okay, now if you go to your documents tab, the trust deed is also appearing there. So your trust deed now appears as part of the trust documents, which makes a bit more sense. All right, still got half a page to go. Let's have a look at some of these questions. With regards to the integration to XPM, we have had to add the trusts manually to the trust selection, as we have custom business structures assigned to our trust XPM. However, as a result, we have ended up with duplications of our trusts in XPM. Would you consider linking business structure type, which is limited to the ones you have now, rather than the business structure name? Catherine, it's a very in-depth question. I'm probably not going to do it justice in this webinar. Other than that, to say we are making a lot of changes to, or essentially a completely new version of our XPM integration, which will give you a lot more flexibility and a lot more flexibility, and I suppose a lot more choice when it comes to how you want the integration to work. So I would say hold tight on that one, because it is coming. Where you're going to have a lot more control over the entities. You'll also have integration with companies, CAS companies, CAS trusts, CAS contacts, and CAS contact companies and contact trusts. Gets a bit complex, but what it means is basically all the entities will be integrated, not just the client list and the contact list. Hopefully that gives you a little bit more of an insight, but certainly we are working in depth on a enhanced practice management model. Does the New Zealand version and the Singapore version integrate with the local authorities' e-lodgement system? The answer is a resounding yes. In CAS 360, you can lodge to the company's office in New Zealand electronically, and you can lodge to ACRA in Singapore. In fact, we are the only company in the world that is lodging annual returns to ACRA in Singapore. There you go. It would be nice if once an annual company statement has been completed by a client signed through CAS, that the alert automatically comes off to note the annual review is complete rather than having to click annual review. Can this be added? Yes. No, I understand the question. It would only be able to be done for digital signing. Okay. Obviously, we don't have the ability to track a PDF, but for a digital signing and new return, certainly something we can look at. Okay, just another comment there. All right, let's check the Q&A. I think they're all sorted. Good. Okay, let's move on. The next feature I'm going to have a look at is the way that we have added a date to the annual company statement settings. I know there's been a couple of questions about annual company statements, so here's a good chance for me to cover off on a few of them. So here on my annual company statement screen, and click on Prepare Documents. Now in this screen, we've got the annual company statement. So this is the CAS 360 version of the annual company statement. And the biggest difference here is this signing line. Okay, so I can get Adriana here to sign off. Now the feature I'm going to show you is the date and how we're able to manipulate the date and show the date a little bit differently. But I just want to make sure that everyone can see that on the CAS 360 version of the annual statement, it has a signing line. If I click on the ASIC version, we've all seen, oh, there you go, I don't even have it. We've all seen the ASIC version, it doesn't have a signing line, but it does have an invoice attached. The invoice I was talking about here, the CAS generated invoice, is here. This is the CAS 360 generated invoice. So if you turn the ASIC version off, make sure you've got the CAS annual statement and the CAS ASIC invoice, and both will go out to the client. Hopefully that answers one of the questions earlier. With the feature that we added for this release was the ability to change the date format here. So I noticed that Adriana had DDMMYYY. I can put that now to say, show the date in words, or I can actually leave it blank for Adriana to fill in. Okay, so I've got options there. If I go print date in words, hit save, go back to my annual statement, you'll notice now that it says 12th of August. So if I wanted the date to be entered in, we can do that as well. Okay, so I can change that to be just the empty date fields. Hit save and go and prepare that one more time. Now I've got the dates open for the director to sign. Why this is important is that the date is, obviously we can specify the annual review date, but sometimes you might want the director to sign on the actual date, to put in the actual date that they signed it. So now you can do that as well. Are we able to get the ASIC invoice with the signing line? It's a good point. If we can add a signing line, we can add a pay now, right? Maybe we'll do that. All right. Nominee can be added to company deregistrations if the company is the applicant. So when we're doing company deregistrations, what we're able to do is obviously put in that nominee. So where the applicant is a company, because sometimes you can select the applicant to be a company, you can go and put in a nominee. Okay, so hopefully that that makes sense to you. It might not happen all that often, but you can obviously change the applicant capacity and put in a nominee where required. The next one's a very small one. You may have noticed, you may not have, but we improved the ordering of the addresses screen. So now the addresses screen matches the addresses drop down. Who would have thought? Okay, now when a company, now this one I need everyone to listen to. When a company is imported via an RA71 or an annual review, the user who imports the data will be shown in the notification. I will say this to all users, and I hope that you're listening loud and clear. When you are importing the data from ASIC, ASIC do not provide the history. So when you import the data, you will overwrite the history. Okay, so be very, very careful when you are importing the data. And really, you should only be importing the data when, I'm just trying to find one that I might have here, but you should only be importing the data when you absolutely need to. Okay, so if I go have a look at this particular screen, you'll see that we have a nice big red bar warning, this process is irreversible. Are you sure you want to do this? So we do have a warning there. And then we have another warning here that says all historical data will be deleted and replaced with the current ASIC data. So if you are importing data from ASIC, please be very careful. At the very least, if you don't need the shareholder data, turn it off. You can turn the shareholder data off and you can just import the offices and the addresses and the details. You can also import in proper case or uppercase as well. Okay, so depending on how you like your data. ASIC store everything in uppercase by default, so we make it look a bit nicer, but you do have some options there. All right, here we go. Let's have a look at some of the questions. Can the date change be done with digital signing? Does that mean the date input with digital signing might be the point there? We are working on that. That'll be released pretty soon. And it's been a long time coming, but it is coming. Can they still add their own date to the, as Viola's same question. So Viola, yes, it's been a long time coming, but it is coming. Certainly been working on there. When can we expect the one-way CAS XPM integration? I love giving out deadlines to products I don't work on. I don't work on the XPM integration, so it's always very hard to give out a deadline. Sarah, know that we are working on it. I think that we would love to have it out this year, but we're definitely working on it. It's full steam ahead, and hopefully we can get it out pretty soon. I don't want to overpromise. Sometimes projects take longer than we think as well. So, but it's certainly something that we're working on and we want to get out the door. We see tremendous value in having a two-way or a one-way integration. How can we request a digital signature when we add a new company after which its annual review has been issued from the previous agent? Richard, the short answer is you cannot, not for the annual review anyway. If a previous agent has received the annual review, chances are you won't be able to recall the annual review. So that might be difficult. Can the Form 6010 be finalised with a trace number with no date? The answer is no, Rebecca. We do require a date because the date does. So the date is required because the date of signing is required to be submitted to ASIC as part of the lodgement. So when you prepare your document, right, we need all the details. And I know that that's not something you always have, but when we prepare the document, we also have to prepare the electronic message to send to the regulator. I mean, the same goes for every form, and that's why dates are required, because we need to be able to send that data to the regulator. It's not an option of having undated documents going to the regulator because they'll reject them. When will the recording of this be available? When marketing finish editing it, hopefully Albert, if not tomorrow, Monday, it'll be on the community. And don't get the date wrong. How else can ASIC apply penalties? Exactly, Deborah. Some would say that they exist to penalise. Okay, I'll keep going. 2 more features to go, but the last one is worth waiting for. Added the ability to set all TFNs as provided when preparing dividends. So obviously we need to have the TFNs or at least mark them as provided in CAS 360. So when you go to your shareholders and you prepare your dividends, okay, you click on prepare documents. What you are now able to do in your dividend statement settings is set all TFNs as provided. And that will show on the distribution, on the dividend statement, sorry, and the distribution statement for a unit distribution, it will show that the TFNs have been provided, even if you may not have them in CAS 360. It'll show that they've been provided and it will show the correct franking rate. So hopefully that helps you out or make your dividend statements look a little bit nicer. The last one I promised was a big one. It is to do with trust distribution enhancements, and we did release these, I think, just before June 30. If you are doing, or if you are managing trusts in CAS 360, one of the big features is trust distributions, including discretionary trust distributions. So if I go to my RegTech Trust, I click on beneficiaries. Here I have all of my beneficiaries. We have added 6 new features to our discretionary trust distributions, and here they are. So if I go into review distributions and click on, well, first of all, I can now copy a previous distribution. So if your distributions don't change from year to year all that much, and for mum and dad trusts, they may not, you can now simply click copy, and that will make a copy of the previous distribution. So that is done. What we have done now is you can now set the order in when the distribution type is free text. You can now set the order that the names will appear in the resolution. So in this particular scenario, I can see that for dividends franked, Andy is getting the first 416, Daniel's getting 50% of the balance, and Matt's getting 50% of the balance. Now, what I'm actually able to do is change here the order. So I can set Daniel to become second and Matt to appear third. Okay, or maybe I want Matt to appear second. So I can go and change the order here in how these names appear on the resolution. So previously it was alphabetical order. We would just show Andy first all the time. If I go to something like Anthony, what I can do is I can make Anthony first 5,000 appear first, and then I can go and make myself second as 100% of balance. What I'm able to do is control how the names appear on that resolution for free text. Also, if I change it to percentage and dollar, you can also set the order as well. Now, sometimes you might want to set it by alphabetical order. Sometimes you might want to set it by highest dollar amount. Well, now you have complete control over how you want those to appear. So that's item 2 and 3. The next one is adding the ability to expand the free text size. So you can see here, this is free text, but what I can do is what we've done is continue to enhance and improve the size of the field so you can keep typing away. So we now have a much bigger free text size. So that's better. We have also added the ability to add a beneficiary more than once. So sometimes you might be in a situation where Andy gets the first 416, and then maybe Andy will get another part of that same component. So what you're able to do is click on Add Beneficiary and add Andy in again. Okay, so say for example, this might have been, might change this to 30% of balance, and now you can type in Andy 20% of balance. So now you can add a beneficiary more than once to that particular component. And what we have also done is we added a huge amount of merge fields to make your distribution resolutions look beautiful. So we worked with a number of practices on this to basically get their existing distributions and make it possible for CAS 360 to build those distributions automatically. So now those practices that might have, some of them have 500, 600, 700 trusts. When it comes to June 30, they can click copy resolution or copy last year's distribution, go to the distribution resolution, click print, and it will have the whole process done for them. It's that quick. So they'll be able to really make that June 30 or that June process so much quicker. Some practices even start in April, but CAS 360 now allows you to prepare those distribution resolutions really quickly with a huge amount of flexibility as well. So if you are doing that, if you are doing distribution resolutions, or if someone in your practice is doing distribution resolutions, let them know that CAS is there. And the best thing is they're free. We don't charge for this. It's not as if you have to pay to access this feature. You all have access to it today. Is there a sample of the trust distribution minute for review? Johnny, yeah, there is. If you click on save and prepare, we have a baseline. Here it is here. So we have a baseline, but you can put your own distribution resolution in. All of our documents are customizable. All of our documents are editable. So you are able to put in whatever text you like. So hopefully that helps and will help you maybe distribution time next year.